It's the Morning Sports Report here on TribLIVE Radio, TribLIVE.com. Ken Laird, Guy Junker. We have pulled in our Pitt basketball beat reporter, John Harris, before he heads off to Louisville for what's become a pretty big game, John. You're right. Pitt, Louisville coming up tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game for sure. A game that Pitt, I'm not going to call it a must-win. They've got 3 games coming up, and I'd say they must win 2 of those 3 to really be in serious consideration for the NCAA tournament this year. But they gave themselves a chance. Big win on Saturday against Syracuse.
If you throw that 4th game in there, John, with Syracuse, if they would beat, say, North Carolina at home and then beat Syracuse on the road, would that be enough?
They need to beat
one of these other ranked teams.
They need to get another ranked, because they're kind of in a grouping right now with some other ACC teams like North Carolina State, Miami, who beat Duke. So they need to get, as big as the win against Syracuse was, and they knocked off Notre Dame, which is number 10. But if you could get a Louisville, which is number 9 on the road, or at a Virginia, which I think is number 2, one of those 2, that'll go a long way. And when they get down to starting to decide who's going to be in there and who's not, it would definitely put Pitt in the conversation.
Pitt back in the conversation with a couple of wins here against Notre Dame and Syracuse. How are they getting it done, John? I mean, and maybe different than we've ever seen a Jamie Dixon team get it done.
Yeah, they're just scoring more points. Jamie Dixon is working with what he has and the players, their strengths, and he wants everybody to be, or at least committed to defense, but I guess sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And you've got to get the best out of each player that you have. And right now they're shooting with a lot more freedom. They're scoring points because they're not stopping people. So they're outscoring them. And it's not the Pitt way, but it's working, so you go with it.
Yeah, talking to the players yesterday, Ken, John and I were over there. They all seemed to smirk and be kind of happy that they're giving us that the lid's been taken off the offense a little bit at least. And Jamie looks like he got an extra gray hair or 2 that he maybe didn't have before. But to me, that's the sign of good coaching, that you see what you got, and even if it goes against what your philosophies are, they're not keeping anybody under 50%. So you might as well go out and try to outscore them because you're not playing the defense or rebounding the way most of your teams in the past have.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to win 20 games again. They're probably going to win 10 in the ACC. Whether that gets them in the tournament or not, who knows, but pretty impressive given some of their limitations this year roster-wise. And, John, we see artists come alive. And early in the year, the Boston College game, Jeter was big, and then he never played again until this past win over Syracuse. What do you see in those 2 players right now, Artis and Jeter?
Well, they don't win. They don't beat Syracuse without Jeter the other day. And it's funny. He seems to have, he was asked, well, what do you need to do? And he was like, hey, I guess play defense or talk more. It was almost like he was saying, I don't know what I need to do. And I see him as an energy guy who can come in there and do some things and maybe short bursts. He said he needs more than 3 or 4 possessions before coming out. But I think he could have given them some of that from time to time. I think that's what he gives you right now until maybe he gets more comfortable in the system and understands a little bit more of what Jamie Dixon wants from him, at least at the defensive end. But the way it's going right now, and you've got guys playing 38 minutes. I'm looking at the box score from the other day, and you've got Jamel Artis, 38 minutes. Michael Young, 38 minutes. James Robinson, 38 minutes. I mean, that's not a pace you want to continue, especially with this tough run of games coming up. You're going to need production from your bench.
And even Chris Jones guy came in and hit a couple big threes. I mean, just to get a few players who have not contributed much at this point in the year coming alive, that's the best sign of all, right?
I think so, but I think, and everybody did speak yesterday, even the players that were happy about being able to shoot earlier and take more shots, that the defense has to get better, that they have to improve it. It may not be your typical Pitt defense by the end of the year, and I think we were all in agreement and have praised Jamie Dixon for the most part of his tenure. Their teams always get better. I think he's a great teacher, and I think they do get better. To me, the key for them to, if not making the NCAA tournament, but continue to improve and have a nice finish, is to stay as aggressive offensively as they have been, but tighten things up a little bit. This isn't going to go down as one of the best rebounding or defensive teams Pitt's ever had, but I think they can be better, and if they can do that and still, put the points on the board that they've been able to during this, at least 2 of these 3 games in the winning streak, then I think we'll have something here in the last month.
Well, and John, before we let you go, I mean, if they don't get it done and get to the tournament, the loss that's most damaging? Is it the Virginia Tech loss or losing to some of the bubble teams that they'll be up against, like Clemson and NC State?
I would say Virginia Tech and Hawaii are the two that really hurt. Virginia Tech now, because it's more recent. Hawaii was back in November. But I would say Virginia Tech. That was a game that they had, and just it slipped away. And they've played a lot better since then, but those one of those games when they start looking at the list, that's one game that that people will be pointing at.
We'll be following Pitt with a couple big ones this week, back home for North Carolina, and then, of course, Virginia on the horizon. John Harris covering Pitt basketball all year for Trib Total Media, TribLIVE.com.